It seems Barbara's been hitting more than just the books. Here's your look at the brand new McFarlane Toys Batman 66 Batgirl. Kapow! The debonair millionaire Bruce Wayne may seem like your average cool cat, but you'd be wrong. With the flip of a Shakespeare head bust, then to the Batcave he goes. Gotham City is filled with a rogues gallery of criminals eager to unmask the Batman, but they are thwarted by the Cape Crusaders' own clever ways. Leaving the library and coming to us in figure form. Before we get a closer look at the Batman 66 Batgirl, I'd like to first thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide this sample we're about to have a look at. The fact that the figure is actually being branded as Batman 66 makes me think that the Batgirl is actually based on the 66 Batman comic run, not necessarily the way she appears in the 66 series, even though she is looking exactly the same in the 66 series as she was also in the comic. It's a whole confusing state. Though, let's grab the tape measure and get some things sorted out at least, like how tall the figure stands. Batgirl in this case is about 5.5 inches in height, or she's going to be about 14 centimeters tall. And let's get going with some size comparisons. So here's what Batgirl looks like with the Adam West Batman. I didn't want to bring in the one that has the breathing mask, even though they are part of the same wave, just because I'm sure if you're going to be picking up a Batgirl, you're likely going to be displaying her with both Batman and the Boy Wonder Robin. And here's what she looks like compared to the two figures. Seeing that this figure is also from the 66 comic run, at least that's what I'm guessing, I did also want to bring in the 66 Two-Face, which specifically was from Batman 66, not from the Batman Classic series. Even though it would have been Eartha Kitt that she would have been, of course, foiling the plans of. I don't have an Eartha Kitt Catwoman for right now, but I have the Julie Newmar. So I'm going to bring her in also for as well. And another villain, of course, she always seemed to spoil his plans. Here's also what she looks like with Egghead. We have still yet to get ourselves Olga, Queen of the Cossacks. From Cossacks to cuffs, at least bat cuffs. That's one of the included accessories. How's that for a segue? One of the included things that come included with Batgirl is a pair of bat cuffs. And they're molded in not the softest of plastic, but I do like the color choice that they use, the very royal purple. I think these have the means to attach onto a figure's arms, although it'd be a little harder with some of these arms. You have to kind of bring the arms inward here, and of course you'd have to remove the fist. These ones I don't think will fit, for example, a Two-Face, but they may fit for example, like a Catwoman. The only thing I was worried about, though, is while trying to remove Catwoman's arms, the hands themselves, trying to divorce them from the rest of the forearms, it really did seem like the peg was very reluctant to be removed. So I would certainly suggest if you're looking to put the bat cuffs on any one of the villains, make sure you're probably heating the hands first in hot water, or even using the blow dryer trick just to soften up the plastic just a little bit, as I'm sure you probably would be able to fit these over the forearms of any one of the, well, at least villains that have the means. Like, for example, Catwoman, you could bring her arms a little bit more closer together. You could kind of, I suppose, even try to fit them around Catwoman's hands and sort of just kind of pinch the thumbs inward, but I really wouldn't want to destroy the hand just to kind of get, again, the cuffs around her. I'm sure there is the means to do it. It just involves a little bit of heating in order to do it. The figure also comes included with a Batarang, very small Batarang. Do we have one of the ones? I did actually have the one we just recently looked at from Robin. I'm going to bring it right now so you can see the difference between the two. Obviously, colors aren't the only thing that changes between the two. The Batarang for Robin is much bigger than the Batarang that comes included with Batgirl. She does have, unfortunately, and here's one thing, the figure only comes included with one gripping hand. I feel, honestly, there should be a rule in place that anytime you get a hand that has, well, anytime you have a figure that has two accessories, by default, they automatically should have two gripping hands also as well. You can take the Batarang, and the Batarang fits just fairly well, in fact, actually into her hand. The little middle part of the bat actually rests nicely against the wrist, or I guess the top of the hand. And she actually holds it pretty well, even surviving the blizzard test. For that matter, you could also really take also the bat cuffs and just sort of also fit them into her hand as well. She could be displayed that way too. Although those are fairly large cuffs. I can't imagine where she's actually storing on the utility belt. Putting those to the side. Getting a closer look though at Batgirl. Again, not really sure why they didn't call this the classic TV series Batgirl and immediately jumped right to calling this the Batman 66, which again usually is identified then by the ones that make the comic run, like the spin-off or continuation comic run that would have been then a continuation from the original series. Batgirl is sort of listed under the 66 series, not the classic TV series. That doesn't make any sense? Okay, hopefully it does. I don't know if it maybe just is based on the licensing. They couldn't maybe get the likeness, for example, of the original actress that played her. I don't know. Maybe that is the case. If it is the case, I mean, I think it's a close enough proximity to the way that Batgirl would have looked in the series, right down to the wig that she would have wore on the back of the cowl. Because, of course, Batgirl from the original 60s series would have had short hair, only throwing people off, especially her own father, as to actually who was underneath the cowl of Batgirl. I think for what we actually get for the face, it's pretty nice. It seems a little, though, darker around the areas of her eyes. It's maybe not as light as is the coloring for the lower part of her face. Although still between the two, I still think that the coloring of her face is maybe too tad dark of the skin tone that she would have had in the series. But even then, looking at the eye area, the eye seems really a lot darker than I think it really should be. It's almost as if like she's got a mesh across her eye sockets, covering and masking her identity even further. I think it's way too dark, honestly. I don't know if they probably would have just gone and painted a darker plastic with the paint necessary. If that was the case, I think it would have made more sense to really then paint the cowl over top of a lighter plastic instead. Either way, whatever feelings I feel when it comes to the darker color that they approach for the eyes, I think it's still a nice looking head sculpt. I don't think, again, it looks as much like her, but I've noticed with a lot of the Batman series, I'm just going to interrupt right now by bringing in Adam West. I mean, I think they bear enough of a resemblance, but there's sort of more of a stylized approach when it comes to the designing of these characters. And I think like Batgirl also as well. It doesn't look 100% like the actress, but I still think it's close enough. I like the colors. That's one thing I really do like, is the colors that they chose for the purple. Like in the series, the outfit that she wears is actually a little bit darker for the suit than it is for the cowl. The cowl is actually, I think in the series, more of a matte finish, while clearly more of a shinier finish, shinier material that they use for the actual Batgirl suit. She does have, again, a cape located on the back of her body. It's sort of, again, a very squared off cape. I kind of wish that they could have found a way to taper the cape a little bit more. Maybe instead of actually cutting it like a rectangle, if they cut it like more of a triangle and just put, of course, the hole in the top, I think you would have got less a boxy looking cape and something a little bit more fitted to her body. The paint that they've done here for the emblem here on the front is pretty well painted. Again, there's some pretty clean paint applied here. Something that certainly would be a problem is painting yellow, and yet they seem to succeed fairly well, in fact, painting not only the emblem, the black around it, but then painting all the individual pockets that make up her utility belt. Batgirl has very less pockets than, say, Batman. I mean, again, when you're looking at the back here, she has no place to really store, say, a Batgirl shield. That would be funny if she had a Batgirl shield. But again, I think it's a well-painted looking figure. Down below here, boots are also something that also gets painted here on the figure, while all the rest of it seems to be just left behind with the purple plastic alone. Maybe they probably would have gone in there and painted also the gloves. Whether they would have painted the gloves differently or painted the suit, I'm guessing for the amount of labor involved to paint everything, it probably would have been easier to mold it in this color and then to go back and paint the gloves a different purple. For the articulation here for Batgirl, I'm going to start once again with her head sculpt. Even though she does have longer hair, which you would think right away would be a write-off when it comes to rotating her head, she actually succeeds pretty well in rotating the head back and forth. She can look down. Looking up, though, is maybe where she's a little bit more limited, and you can also rock the head back and forth also as well. Shoulders, like the Batman and the Robin we looked at before, I mean, you got about a 90-degree angle bend. You can also take those arms and rotate them all the way around. The figure has a swivel in her on her bicep. She actually has a swivel in her elbow, but just in that same place, she also has a hinge where you can bend the arm at about 90 degrees. You can also take the hands, rotate them all the way around. The figure does have a waist swivel, which is good to see. And still, while not having a splits, unfortunately, on the tops of her legs, she at least has the means to bring her legs forward. So if forever there be a chance that they release, say, for example, a Batgirl cycle, which I really hope is going to be the case, you can probably be able to fit her inside or on top of a Batgirl cycle. But she does have at least a means to move her legs forward and back. And again, only just a single hinge on the leg, but the actual hinge in the knee also allows the lower leg to rotate back and forth. How about that? There's no articulation that I can see, at least for the boots. And one thing about the boots is it causes the figure, just for how much footprint space she has, this little heel on the back does little in the way of helping the figure stand, but at least you'll be happy to know that she has pegals in the undersides of her feet. So if you do have a problem, for example, getting her to stand, it's just a shame that a company like McFarlane wasn't releasing, I'm just going to interrupt myself. McFarlane does release, of course, display stands. This just happens to be one for a DC Multiverse figure, but it uses the same size diameter peg, so you can actually have it attached onto Batgirl's feet if you're having a problem getting the figure to stand. Speaking of standing, let's wrap things up with her standing and have her maybe displayed again with her 66 counterpart Two-Face. Now again, Two-Face would have not appeared in the original 60s series, but he did appear at least in the follow-up comic run, which again apparently seems to be the place where Batgirl is residing. Not sure, again, why it wasn't necessarily the case that they didn't have her part of the classic TV series subcategory. Maybe it was, again, had something to do with the likenesses, the licensing they couldn't get available for her, and maybe because of that, she has a little more of a cartoon look. I'm not really sure the case, but for one reason or another, she's actually been released as part of the Batman 66 comic run and not of the 66 series. I know it's really hard and confusing to say that. Here's what she also looks like finally, once again, with both Adam West Batman here to the right and to the left, Burt Ward Robin. A nice way of displaying all three figures if you get the chance to pick up Batgirl for yourself. While I may be a bit baffled as to why this Batgirl had to appear as Batman 66 and not Batman the Classic Series, when I think of the Batman 66 run, I always think of characters right away that never appeared in the Classic Series, like Two-Face. Two-Face was planned to be in the series, and he never got the chance. So therefore, he was in the spin-off comic run, Batman 66, but Batgirl appeared in the third season of Batman. She was played by Yvonne Craig. Maybe it was the case they couldn't get the likeness down for Craig, so therefore they gave us a Batgirl that looks a little bit more animated, like, for example, compared to, say, both the Adam West Batman and the Burt Ward Robin. That's my only guess, is because, again, she appeared in the series of Batman, though she, granted, appeared later into the season, after, of course, the Batman movie had come out, but still she was part of the original classic show. Either way, though, we do get ourselves a nice-looking Batgirl that's still going to fit in nicely with the Batman and the Robin we looked at before, and as well as all the other Batman series figures that we've gotten from the folks over at McFarlane Toys. Bit of a bummer, yes, unfortunately, that Batgirl only has one gripping hand, so even though she has two included accessories, sort of falls in the same territory as Burt Ward Robin. She comes with two accessories, which only has the means to store one. And speaking of storing, there isn't any other place on the utility belt, for example, that you could store like the Batarang. So if you thought for yourself, okay, well, I could have her displayed with the bat cuffs and just put the Batarang somewhere else. There isn't a somewhere else on Batgirl. You unfortunately either have her displayed with the bat cuffs, either have her displayed with the Batarang. You can't have her displayed with both. But what do you guys think of Batgirl? Let me know down below in the comment section. And why do you think that this figure was released under Batman 66 and not Batman the Classic Series? We can all sort of figure it out together. Once again, though, I'd like to thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide this sample of the Batman 66 Batgirl. We had the chance to have a look at this review. Speaking of reviews, if you guys enjoyed finishing or enjoyed liking the one you just finished watching, why not hit it with a like? Why not? You're here anyways. And certainly as well, if you'd like to stay on board and see more from the folks over at McFarlane Toys, make sure if you haven't already done so that you're hitting that subscribe button down below and that you're also turning on the bell notification. A little bit of extra time on your Bat Watch. Well, popping up at the very end of this video will also be a playlist, not just covering Batman the Classic Series, not just covering Batman the 66 run, but all the bunch of other things that McFarlane's been releasing over the years that the guy behind the camera's been reviewing on a regular basis. Popping up at the very end of this video will be a playlist from McFarlane Toys. Like I said, if you have a little bit of time on your hands. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.